Hey everybody, welcome to Unscripted. My name is Sam. We're here with Aaron, Pastor Aaron. It's
Sam.
so good to see you, man. I can't believe you're here. This is a pretty
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah.
What is going on?
What is going on?
What's going on in here?
I'm talking to Aaron.
Pastor Aaron DeMaster, the Archbishop of Fond du Lac.
All right.
This is awesome. What are you doing here?
I'm here for Unscripted.
Dude, are you on Fond du Lac time? You're a week early.
Oh, that's right. You're supposed to be next week.
You're a week early.
You're on
All
next
right.
week's episode. Oh, man.
You got me an Americano.
Is that my coffee?
I'm a coffee drinker, not an
You're
Americano.
taking my seat. You're drinking my coffee. That's fantastic.
Why don't you scoot out, man? We'll get
All
you
right,
later.
Wow, Sam, holy cow, I'm 2 minutes late and you replaced me?
Easy, man. Always.
This is a hot seat. Everybody wants it, huh?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
I mean, you go on for a minute, and of course I'm going to replace you, man. It doesn't take much.
So you really have Aaron on schedule for next week?
Yeah, he's going to be on our next episode. It's going to be pretty awesome.
I have the week off.
Okay, good. So that
Nice.
works out perfect.
Okay, sweet. I'm excited. Nice.
I'm really excited about that one. I'm excited to talk to you today, too.
Thanks.
I mean,
guess.
yeah, I didn't do my full intro. We got to do it. We are here as Unscripted. We're all about inspiring better conversations and helping people think more deeply and critically about faith, life, and leadership. And here I am with not Aaron, but with my good
And
friend.
drinking Americanos from mugs. Another Americano?
Hey, man.
Oh, if you didn't see this, if you didn't see the podcast last week or listen in, we talked about Americanos from mugs. This is my favorite drink. So thank you. 2 weeks in a row, Americano from mugs with heavy cream. It's awesome. So if you like coffee, just try it.
Unless you're Aaron, he's like, nope, that's not my drink.
Aaron is still young and foolish. Okay, give him time.
Apparently, I am too because
He's well ahead of my pace at his age, but he's still got a lot of learning to do.
I don't know. I'm a big black coffee with just a little cream.
Oh, that's
my
nice.
thing.
You're young too, Sam.
My not as
This is a more
sophisticated.
refined taste that comes with age. You know?
Oh man, that's great. So, I've got some fun things to talk to you about today.
Okay, fun.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really good. I'm really excited about this one because I think that this is something that you are really good at, and I'm excited for people to hear how this process goes through your brain. And your mind and how this all happens. And what inspired me to think of this as the topic is it's been a thing around RCC for a long time where you'll stand up on a Sunday morning and you'll get on stage and you'll say something like, all right, everybody, this is not a normal Sunday.
Yeah.
And the joke is that happens every week.
Yeah.
Like there are no normal Sundays at
Right.
RCC.
Right.
And so what I want to talk about is creativity and being edgy and being able to like push the envelope a little bit and do unique things that keep things relevant and keep things like timely and that sort of thing, and how to do those things,
Okay.
but also do them without like compromising values and faith and that sort of thing.
Okay. I hope that's a lot of words.
It's
So
a lot of
I hope
words.
that's not a question because I'm not
That
sure
is
what
the
to
question, but let's start with the first bit. I
Okay.
mean, you push the envelope a lot of times for like different crazy things you've done here. Why? Why do you push the envelope? Let's start there.
I'm a little uncomfortable with the words "push the envelope."
Good.
I just because I don't intend to just like push an envelope for no reason.
Well, that's why I want to talk
Yeah,
about it.
like that. I mean, people do that in different businesses and entertainment areas and stuff. I'm never just trying to push an envelope. So I wouldn't want people to think that it's all about some weird hype thing.
Good. Good.
That's to me that'd be lame in the church setting. However, Jesus was an extreme radical of his time. He
Yeah, he
did
was.
things so much different than how everyone else was doing things, and the establishment had so many problems with how he did things. So us being creative or trying new things isn't to push an envelope. It's to be as open-minded as Jesus is and attempt to treat people well and to inspire people and to educate people and to motivate people in new and creative ways, just like Jesus does. There's not only one way to do a church service or to lead a church right. There's all different types of churches that are really, really good as long as they're Jesus-focused, God-focused, Bible-teaching churches. Those are all amazing. So what I'm excited about at RCC is that we can do all sorts of different things, all within that giant box of what's appropriate before Jesus. There's not one way to do it, and I love continuing to do things differently to keep reminding people of that. There's not one right way to do church. The church down the street, there's a pastor at a church down the street that I respect so much. They're very, very different than us.
Yeah.
But I think they're doing church really, really well in a way that honors God, in a way that promotes faith in Jesus. That's amazing. So there's not one right way. So it's not really about pushing the envelope. It's about being creative and having variety because that's fun, but it's also a model of how Jesus did ministry.
Okay, so there's a lot of questions that I have off of that. You talk about having variety and creative. First, let's just have some fun. What do you think is one of the most creative, fun things we've done here at RCC over the years? Like, give me a top two.
Top two. Okay. These didn't necessarily go over that well.
Okay.
But I liked them. Two different times in services, I came out in a gorilla suit.
Yeah.
Those.
I don't think I was ever here for those. Those were before my time.
Yeah, that was back when I was young and crazy. I thought it was meaningful. It wasn't for show. It wasn't for spectacle. It was to teach a point. And so I thought that was a really good way to teach a point. I'm a teacher, right? I came from teaching. So for me, it's about teaching, and good teaching helps people not only have information, but to activate that information, to implement. So all the teaching here is about application or implementation into your life. So to use a gorilla suit to help people actually change the way they think and then do differently, I think was super effective, and it was a little goofy and a little crazy, and that's just fun.
Yeah.
So that's one. We had a kangaroo on stage once.
That was right. I forgot about that. I love that so much.
And I got a lot of criticism, like, "Oh no, you can't go on stage. Why would you ever do that? It's Easter." And the whole point was, it's Easter. Easter should be the funnest day of the year. And
it's a huge party.
Kangaroos
It's gotta
are just
be
fun. Go look at a kangaroo. They're fun.
Well, I think it's so funny. Like, I think we said something
you
like
could have
we
an
couldn't find a
aardvark.
bunny,
That wouldn't be
so-
fun, but well, it is aardvarks. Maybe could be fun,
They
right?
could be
Because the
fun,
name.
yeah.
But
Animals are just cool.
yeah, but it was. I don't know. It was just silly fun because if you really believe in Jesus and really experience what Easter truly is, you should be giddy.
Yeah.
Like it's so amazing. So that was fun.
What I think about it's funny about that is if we would have had a bunny rabbit, people probably would have been fine with it. But like that, because it's Easter bunnies,
Yeah,
people
right.
think about that. But that's probably like less sacrilegious to have a kangaroo because people associate bunnies with Easter more than the resurrection.
Yeah.
And like it could actually be like more like pure and good. So
Yeah, you
sorry.
could have bunnies for the kids to play with and stuff,
Yeah.
and that would have not
fine.
been so crazy. But
Kangaroo's way cooler.
I thought so. But that's the deal with some of this stuff. Like sometimes you think it's fun, sometimes you don't. I don't love every single thing we've ever done at church either. You can't go and think, I better love 100% of everything, or I'm gonna have a problem. So maybe having the kangaroo wasn't the best day for a visitor that day. That's okay. Maybe the next week is.
Yeah.
That's part of the variety. Even your music styles or whatever. We have hymns sometimes. We have hard rock sometimes. Whatever. You should be excited that other people are getting their favorite thing, not that you aren't getting yours.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm curious. There's a couple more questions that just pop in my head off of that. How do you deal with striking out? So you have some ideas that people don't like.
Yeah.
How do you not let that become a thing for you?
Well, sometimes one way to improve as an individual in any walk of life is to experiment, right?
For sure.
So as a teacher, I trained a lot of student teachers. And what I always said to them is be constantly experimenting. Constantly. And then if you realize something isn't going well, be wise enough to figure that out, and then wise enough to not do it again, right? Because if you're going to have a long teaching career, if you only make a certain mistake once and never make that one again, over time, there's not that many mistakes left to make.
Yeah.
Right? You learn and then you don't do it. And then stuff that works well, the children learn really good when I do this. Great. Do that more often. So we've done the same thing at church, and there have been experiments that haven't gone well. We had maybe a year or two ago at the high school, like some superheroes or characters come into the services, right?
Yes, I remember that.
And the idea sounded fun, and we did it a couple of weeks. We were going to do it like 4, and we did it like 2 or 3, and we stopped because it's like this just wasn't working right.
Yeah.
It just didn't fit the way we thought it would fit, and so we canceled it, early because of that. It wasn't the perfect thing in those services. If you were there, you were like, yeah, that wasn't that great. But we learned, and I wouldn't do it that way again, right?
Yeah.
So it's okay to make mistakes. It's dumb to keep making the same mistake, though.
Yes. I think that's really good advice. It's good to keep on being willing to experiment. Like we talk about that a lot here. Like experimentation is great. If there's a place that does experiments and tries new things, there's nothing wrong with that because that invites an atmosphere of creativity and trying to think outside the box for how you're going to get things done. But let me get on at that for a little bit.
If it's God honoring, it's good. Okay,
Great.
'cause that's the whole point, to be there, right?
Yes.
So you can do a service, you can do a ministry, a weekly thing, whatever it is, in all sorts of different ways. But if the intention is to honor God, it's pure to start. And then if it actually does honor God, like people honor God or make a move in their faith to get deeper or more active in their faith, then it's good. And if it doesn't, then quit doing it.
Okay. How do you distinguish for yourself? Like, how do you know if something, like, okay, you're sitting at the table, you got a blank sheet of a blank brand new yellow pad.
Yeah.
You're like ready to go. How does that process go in your brain to go from like a blank yellow pad to ideas? Like, and how do you distinguish between something that's really God honoring,
Yeah.
and something that's just maybe too crazy?
I think it would reveal a huge ego if I said I knew I was always right starting out, right? Like,
Yeah,
I don't like
this
when
is
people
true.
think they're always right.
Yeah.
I think you got to admit failure a lot if you're an honest person. So for me, like you mentioned yellow pad, most people probably don't know that I do everything on yellow pads, and I can go through a couple of yellow pads in a week.
Yes, you
with
can.
ideas and notes and all that stuff. I pour through yellow pads. We have stacks of them here at church. That's just how I work. But yeah, I sit down with a yellow pad, and in the end, if I'm writing a sermon, man, more than half of what I write gets thrown out. Like, here's an idea I write out, and no, that doesn't work. Here, maybe it works, and then eventually by Thursday, it's like, no, I got to eliminate. So it's write, create, edit, until you finally get down to what you really think was what God wanted you to say. I write 2 or 3 times more than I use every single week. And I think God is the one that kind of edits it out. Like, no, this doesn't quite fit, or this idea doesn't exactly line up with that Bible verse that I'm teaching. So
Yeah.
lots of brainstorming, lots of writing, lots of editing.
Okay.
And in the end, I hope I have what God approves, because that's the desire at every single moment of the writing is like, does God want this or not? And to think like 100% of what you do God would want is foolish. So that's the editing process. It's
Yeah.
like you and God going, okay, this has got to go. And that's not to say that in the end all of it is perfectly God blessed either. I'm sure there's lots of mistakes even in the final product, but the desire is to try to do something God would be glorified with.
I think that's fantastic. I really like just the fact that you can be creative, you can brainstorm, you can do lots of things, and yet there's this process on the back end. Even though you get a good idea, it doesn't mean that that's the thing you're going to do. You have to be willing to, on the back end of it, just refine it, ask God if it's the right thing. I mean, I think for me personally, I'll pray before I write a sermon. I'll start off with prayer and then allow God to lead. And then on the back end, I'm praying also like, hey, where did I go off of what you wanted me to say? And that sort of a thing. And I think that's really, really helpful just to know, because I think sometimes we might picture creativity as like whatever it is and however crazy we can be and whatever new thing or new idea we can create. And in a business world, like creativity is like the hot thing, right? Like to be more creative is a good thing. It's a good quality. And yet the craziness that you see sometimes, or the unique ways of teaching, the ways that we help people remember things and live things, that's a well-refined process. Like you're not just doing the crazy thing because you're doing the crazy thing. You're doing the thing that's been well thought through and edited and really feel like it's what you think God wants you to do.
That's the desire.
That's the desire. Well,
you don't always hit it though. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of work that gets done every week at church, all week long, not even just Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And not everything comes off as well as you hoped it would have.
That's
just
true.
reality.
Yeah. How about collaboration? It's something I've admired about you as a leader. It's something you're very obviously good at. You do it very often. So it's not weird at all for you to call a couple people into the office and be like, hey, what do you think of this idea? Give me your critique of it. How would you expand on it? Why are you such a collaborator? Like, why is that such a big part of your leadership?
A couple things I think would be an obvious thing if people would just allow themselves to relax into it. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to do smart things, surround yourself with smart people.
This is very true.
Right? So I love collaboration, and I love a variety of opinions. So whether it's the leadership team here at church or the staff or some other group we gather for some reason, I love all those ideas bouncing around, even like small group studies or at-home studies or community groups or all the different names we've called them, growth groups.
Yeah.
I love when people are all talking about how they view a section of the Bible or whatever, and you hear different perspectives, and by hearing all the different ideas or perspectives on an individual topic really helps me formulate my own. And like you use a little bit of this one and a little bit of that one, and in the end, you've made this amazing thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't scare me. I don't care who gets credit for it. I don't care who had the best idea that day. That's not the point. If you think that should be the point, you shouldn't work in a church, right? It's not about who has the best idea. It's who's doing the most for God in that moment, right? So whoever it is, they may have the best idea that day. Run with it. So I love it. It's exciting to me because you never know what someone might say. Because if I'm going to sit, and I think I'm a fairly creative person, if I'm going to sit with a yellow pen and try to create, I'm pretty good at it. Put 8 people around the yellow pen and create, it's going to be way better.
I completely agree with you, but I want to push back on it a little bit because, I mean, I love collaboration as well, but sometimes it trips me up as soon as like there's too many ideas. So how do you like differentiate that? Like, there's got to be times where it's got to come from you, and there's got to be times where it's got to be collaborative. Like, how do you know when is which?
It's tough to know, right?
It is.
But before I do anything, I always know what my purpose is, and that helps.
Okay.
Like, and that's a life thing for me. Like, why am I doing this? What's my purpose? You know, we're going to go run errands on Saturday. Why? Because everyone else runs errands on Saturday. Maybe I shouldn't run errands on Saturday. And I can frustrate people with that. Like, even staff members sometimes are like, "What's the purpose?"
Yeah.
And it can be a little frustrating, but that's just how I think. So going in, I know the purpose, right? Like, if we're going to talk about whatever, a family event, for instance. Mm-hmm. Okay, what's the purpose? Is it for brand new families at church or families that have been here for a while? Is it so our kids get to know each other better or the adults get to know each other? So I go in with that. So it's easy to weed out ideas as we brainstorm because they either fit the purpose or they don't. And then when that certain idea just hits because you know the purpose, and then like someone's idea just nails right on that purpose, it's like, oh, that's it. I don't even need to talk anymore.
Yeah.
Because I'm still the leader in the room.
Definitely.
Right? So that idea hit and I'm done. They said it, and great. Now we're running in this direction. Now everyone kind of changes. Okay, we're running in this direction together. It's been changed a little bit. Now we're all running this way. Now what's the next idea? And it could be the same person or another person comes to the next idea. But we sort of formulate the path together. But I already knew where the destination was. I knew the purpose.
Got it.
Now let's figure out the best way to get to that purpose.
Got it.
That's what we do.
All right. Now, have you ever had an idea? I really like that because I think that describes how we function in a lot of ways, because there's plenty of times where we start off with, here's our purpose, what are we going to try and do, or here's our outcome, the thing that we want to have happen, how are we going to get there, and then we'll go 5 different directions until we land on the one that's like, that's it. And then we'll maybe run with it too, like, hey, you're going to take care of that part, you're going to take care of that part, and we all kind of contribute to it. And that's a really fun atmosphere to be a part of and a fun thing to do together. But the question I want to ask you is have there ever been any ideas where you felt like you had to flesh it out before you proposed it? Like, you have this thing, it's in a thought, it's in the back of your mind, and you just know that you have to, you can't like, how do I say this? You can't make it less pure by inviting other people into it. Have you ever had that experience where you're like, I have to get this all the way out of my brain because I have an idea and I don't want any other voices in it? Has that ever happened to you?
Sure, that happens all the time too. I mean, it goes both ways. But even if it's a collaborative thing,
yeah.
What people may not realize is I've already spent a ton of time fleshing it out before I bring it to the collaborative process.
It's good to know. Like, that's a big important part.
Yeah, I mean, it's every once in a while a new idea pops up and it just happens.
Yeah.
But the majority of the time, I've kind of processed through something quite a ways where I've determined my purpose and I have an idea of how to get there. And I know my idea is okay, but I bet if I bring some other people in, together we'll make it amazing.
Got it.
It's more like that.
Well, and that's really important because I think some people go into collaboration saying, all right, what are we going to do? And what you're saying is, especially as the leader, if you're walking into a situation, you have put 90% of the effort in already.
Yeah, you just don't walk in the room and say, okay, what do we want to do next?
Exactly.
Blank slate. It's not that. It's like, here's the direction. Now let's get there really, really well.
Exactly.
And depending on who's on your team, like, like some people have the super fun ideas, like the silly, crazy stuff that's really fun. And someone else has a different sort of thinking process. And they usually bring that. You kind of know, going in, who's going to sort of contribute what. There's always surprises. Like I believe, like right now, if we got the entire staff together and we brought in any teenager from the church and just told them to be part of the meeting, contribute how they felt like contributing, they would say something in that meeting that would change the event they were planning a little bit, maybe a lot, right? They'd have this giant, awesome idea, but they'd have something. And that's their first time in the meeting. They're 20 years younger than the rest of us, and they could participate. And it would be fun, right? Because they bring this idea that came from a 15-year-old instead of a 35-year-old. And so they had a little bit different perspective. They'd be totally fresh. That's fun to me. And it's fun to involve people that way because they can see they all have really good ideas.
Yeah.
And it's got to fit within the concept of the team.
I think that's the special part about collaboration and creativity as a goal, as like a side goal, right? To be creative isn't the goal. To be God honoring and to teach what God wants us to teach is the goal.
Right.
But
to accomplish the purpose, whatever that set purpose was, that's the goal.
And creativity is a means to get there.
Yes.
But when you're a part of a healthy team that's doing that well, I think people develop so fast. Like they grow because they're seeing other people's ideas. They're willing to like be vulnerable and put their own ideas out there. And it allows you to kind of work on yourself. It's like a molding that happens just very naturally, just by being a part of that group. I love watching that happen.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had that
Definitely.
experience. Yeah.
Oh, certainly. And part of it is, that speaks to what you're saying is everyone has to not be afraid of change.
Yeah.
And it's a big thing in our culture. Like lots of times people are afraid of change.
Yeah.
It just is all over the place, not just church, but everywhere.
But we've always done it this way.
Yeah. But look at anyone who's been successful in any area. They're never afraid of change.
Yeah.
So if you're afraid of change or fight change, you're going to have a hard time being successful at anything.
Well, let me ask you, how do you stay not afraid of change? Because you've been willing to change in a lot of ways over 20 years.
Innovate or die, Sam.
Okay.
You know, like, I don't know if that's a business phrase or not. I feel like I read that in some business book somewhere.
Sure.
So I don't mean to steal anyone's phrase if it is. But innovate or die. And you can look at any industry that way, and they all have to innovate or die. And church is the same, and not innovate a message. The message has been the same for 2,000 years. You're not innovating the message, but you're innovating how you share the message to fit those that are there, right? Like Paul said, if you're in Rome, be like a Roman person. So we do that all the time here too. We try to take a timeless message and make it contemporary, make it fit our culture today.
Do you think every new generation needs to hear it in a different way?
Basically, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you keep
there are outliers, right? Like there's someone who's 20 that really prefers the same sort of teaching that an 80-year-old would prefer. There's outliers, but overall, generally speaking, yes.
Okay. On that note, then, do you think? How do you keep yourself from not being so excited about the change that you begin to betray the original message? Like, how have you kept yourself solid in that way? And I know we've talked about it a little
Studying.
bit. Okay.
Studying. I mean, I'll never forget what the original message is because I study it constantly.
Yeah.
But then also studying others, right? Like, if you're a studier of other people, if you're a respecter of other people.
I like that phrase, a respecter
You
of other
see
people.
other good stuff. And it might not even be your style, right? Like you see this other church do this thing or this organization do this thing. It's like, well, that's not my style, but I see what they were going after and why.
Definitely.
And it might have a little effect. You don't like totally change the direction of what you do, but you just refine what you do a tiny bit based on what you learned from this book you read or this group that you watched or whatever it might be. But you got to start with respect. You don't know everything about everything. You're not the best at everything. There's someone better than you at every single thing you do.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That doesn't make me bad, right? There's someone better than me at every single thing I do. And who are they? How do they do it? Why do they do it? How can I improve? That's fun for me.
I love that. So you mentioned going and watching other churches or that sort of thing, and that makes sense because we're a church. So you're thinking about what other churches do. But I'm wondering, when you're looking for inspiration and you're drawing inspiration, does it ever come from other places?
Most of the time.
So I was curious, because I know we've talked like that.
Most of the time, yeah. I mean, I do watch other churches and learn from other churches. That's very true. But the majority of innovation comes from outside the church. The church is usually behind.
It's true.
You know, churches are large organizations, and it's hard to turn a large organization. It's like a big ship. It's hard to turn, and it's slower to change. But smaller organizations or small businesses are quicker to change. So you can learn a lot from how they change, why they change, what the effect is, like they change this way and how did it affect things. And then small businesses a lot of times chart the course for a big business because, like, for instance, McDonald's might be, a little slow to change a process. This is giant, super successful organization. Joe's Burger Shack down the street, they better change. They're going to die.
Definitely.
And then, then people learn. It's like, oh wow, look at Joe's Burger Shack. They do it this way. They wrap it in a plastic instead of putting in styrofoam. Maybe we should do that. And then you see a bigger organization make that change as well, like a McDonald's.
Got it. Yeah.
So, and we're a large church in the world of church.
Yeah,
we're bigger than 90% of other churches.
Yeah.
So that makes us, people here might think we're changing quickly, but we're still slow to change here compared to a smaller organization.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I mean, do you feel like we have become slower to change?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what have we sacrificed because of that?
Oh boy, a bit of creativity.
Yeah.
You have this creative idea. And it's like, oh, that's a little too far out there now, and it might take a while to get there.
Yeah.
So I think we sacrificed some creativity, some innovation.
Have we gained things though?
Trust.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Respect.
For sure.
You have a track record. You can go back 20 years here and check our track record. So I think by being consistent, there's change within consistency, but by being consistent, I mean teaching truth every week, straight from the Bible every week. So let's say I don't plan on doing something crazy this Sunday, but if I did, I would hope that people would leave and go, okay, that was crazy. I didn't like that at all. It was stupid. Whatever. I didn't like the sermon this week.
Yeah.
All right. But wait a minute. There's been 20 years of these. I know we haven't really changed the teaching, right? The teaching is still the same. Focused on Jesus, straight from the Bible. That hasn't changed. So hopefully you get that respect and that consistency as you get bigger and slower to change.
Okay. So
otherwise it might be like, oh yikes, is this what this place is all about now?
Yeah.
There was a whole weekend of country music. Is there country music every week now? There's a whole weekend of hymns. Oh no, did we go to hymns? What happened?
Yeah.
We just had a hymn Sunday.
Well, we just
It was
totally
fun.
changed the background of the church this weekend.
Yeah, and I think that's good. I think it's healthy. A church background does not need to look the same forever.
No, it doesn't.
I'm sure there's some people that maybe wish it wouldn't have changed. I'm sure there's some people that love the change.
Yeah.
We've always changed here, though. Is this the best one we've ever had in 18 and a half years? I don't know. Maybe.
I think so.
I do too. That's why we did it, right? But
Exactly.
But everyone's opinion wouldn't be the same, and that's okay.
Definitely.
And next year we might have something else, and maybe you like that one more. But the teaching is still the same. The desire during worship is still the same, right?
Yeah.
We sing to God. We sing about God. That hasn't changed.
And-
Doesn't matter what the background is.
Yeah, and we've covered a ton of stuff already, but I want to kind of finish up. I have the last little bit of this be about purpose again. So you've been a teacher for a number of years before you became a pastor, and as a pastor, you've been a teacher and a coach in the ways that you've led here. Creativity matters because it helps people learn better. Mm-hmm. How does that work in your mind? Like, for example, we changed the background. That wasn't just to change the background. What was the purpose behind that?
The desire, I'm not sure. We have lots and lots of people, so I'm not sure it hit for everybody, but the desire was a bit of a more intimate experience.
Yeah.
And a bit more focused experience on the stage. We have a lot of people and we have a lot of stuff going on. And in that, especially during worship, during the music portion, it's all worship, the whole thing, but the music portion of the worship, I wanted the focus to really be on the lyrics and the words the team is sharing. What people need to know is the people singing those words, they believe those words. That's a requirement of being on the worship team. They have to believe it. So they're singing their hearts out.
Yeah.
We don't want to miss that. Because I'm in the crowd, right? I'm not on stage. I want to sing my heart out too. I want to worship too. And we want to all worship together. And the desire in the worship center is to make that easier for people. To get together, worship God with one voice together, that's a very special thing. Biblically speaking, it invokes the Holy Spirit into the room. Now you have the power of the Holy Spirit there. You have Jesus' presence there. That's what it's all about. And yeah, maybe the lighting or the pretty wall, makes that a little bit easier. That's the desire. No different than why do you project verses up on a screen? To help people focus on the verses. That's what we're actually taught. The whole sermon, if anyone would ever take notes, it's verse, a little bit of talk, verse, a little bit of talk. That's my big secret. I talk through the Bible every Sunday. Wow. It's really not that creative.
Yeah.
But you have to remember that is the purpose. So in the worship time, in the teaching time, helping people connect better with God, grow deeper in their relationship with God. Hopefully a comfortable seat in a nice room makes that easier for people to do. That would be the desire.
What I love about what you just said is you never said the word cool or pretty or whatever. You think you said pretty, but because of the purpose of it. But you never said that the purpose is to make it some cooler experience. The purpose was focus. The purpose was engagement. The purpose was worshiping. And all of that was the purpose behind the way we painted the walls and put some wood up on the wall.
Well, you could go all the way back to the EP, environmental projection.
For sure.
What we have in the worship center, right? So there's lights on the walls with images.
Yep.
And when we first did that, that was cutting edge.
Yeah.
Like cutting edge. That's like 6-7 years ago. And at the time, people were like, wow, a few people didn't like it, but most everyone's like, this is amazing. This is so great. Look what we can do. And you can make it look like a rainstorm, whatever. And that was neat. Okay. There was, oh, wow, that's real neat, whatever. But that wasn't the purpose. My purpose was to envelop the room so that if you're sitting in a seat in that room, you're part of what's going on. You're surrounded by the room and you've been invited into the presence of everyone else in that room. We're all in that same presence before God together. We created, hopefully, the goal was we create that atmosphere where we're all part of this. It's not one person on a stage teaching and they're special. That's wrong. There's 6 people on a stage singing a song and they're special. That's wrong. We're all special. We're all in it together. My role might be to stand up and teach something, but I'm no more special than the person in the last row who's there for the first time to God.
Definitely.
Right? So that was so it could have looked like hoo-ha. Wow, look at this. That's crazy. That wasn't the reason. The reason was to help people engage, to be part of the experience, not watching an experience.
Yes.
Don't watch someone else worship. Worship.
And I think that's exactly it. And this Sunday, I felt that. Like, I was part of this whole place. And for some reason, it felt even more worshipful because I was engaged more. And I think that's the lesson for me in this conversation. For me, as we've been talking about it, creativity is amazing. It's really fun. It's silly sometimes. It's really meaningful other times. But the purpose is to actually help people do something more, worship more, learn more, apply it more, have it be a life-changing thing. So all these things are focused on that end goal. So creativity for creativity's sake is not a bad thing necessarily, but within a church, within a business, it has to have a purpose.
Yeah, that comes back to your first comments about how do you know what the purpose is and all that stuff, and being collaborative. I'm actually collaborative with everyone I talk to.
Yeah.
They may not realize how much I'm actually listening. Like every comment that I hear from people at church, I'm listening and I'm trying to learn. So for instance, if you were to say, you came in and say, wow, the lights on the walls are so cool, they're so fun. I like that. I'm happy the person is enjoying it. But that doesn't lead me anywhere because that wasn't my purpose.
Yeah.
If someone comes in and say, wow, I felt so much more immersed in this experience, I was able to worship so much more, that's a win because that was the goal. If someone comes in and says the opposite, I don't like the lights on the walls because I don't like lights, whatever.
Yeah.
That's whatever. But if someone comes in and says, oh, the lights on the walls distract me and I can't really learn very well, I'm listening. And if I hear enough of that, I'm like, ooh, that didn't work.
Yeah.
That didn't work.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you know what your purpose is. Right? The purpose was to engage people, to help them feel more part of the experience. If I'm hearing comments about that's what's happening for them, yes, that was a win. Mm-hmm. If I'm hearing comments to the opposite, then it was a loss, and we better change quickly before it really starts hurting people. So always listening is key.
Yeah.
Every little comment's important
Well,
if they align with your purpose.
That's so interesting because, I mean, you're creative and always wanting to try new things and experiment, but that's a big part of how you do it is actually listening to what people are saying and not just doing it for the sake of doing it. You're doing it because you care about these people and you want this church family to grow and develop and learn. And because of that, that's why you are actually doing these things and listening the way you are. So I think it's really interesting.
It's all about feedback. I mean, as a teacher, you learn it as a teacher, right? Like you can tell if the students are listening or not.
Definitely.
You know, if they're screwing around, you're probably boring. Sad to say. So pick it up. They're not naughty, right? Like they just want to screw around all the time. No, you're probably boring them and they have nothing else to do but screw around. So feedback's so important. So people's comments or their body language in a service as I'm teaching, I can tell if people are listening or not, right? Like, I'm in the middle of a sermon. It's like, wait a minute. It doesn't really even seem like anyone's listening here. Yeah. I might change it up right there to try to get the attention back.
I've done that.
It's just
back when I was
everything is
leader.
feedback. Everything is feedback.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you teach something and you see people frown, okay, you got to think while you're teaching, why are they frowning? because they're not understanding,
Yeah.
or they don't like what is it? What do you guess the reason is, right? And maybe they're not understanding. Then I'm going to try to explain it a little bit differently.
Definitely.
Right? So feedback's super important. So in the collaborative process, you're all at a table, and it's very obvious about the feedback, but there's always feedback. You know, I bump into someone at the grocery store. There's going to be some feedback of something. Yeah. And I don't mean negative. I don't mean negative at all, but they might say like, oh, I really like the podcast this week, or I really like this or whatever. It's like, oh, okay. If you hear enough of that, you learn something, to the positive or negative.
Yeah, which, by the way, it has been so much fun. Like, so many of you have like come up to us and said, "Hey, I love the podcast, and I've been enjoying it. Don't stop, keep doing them." So we're gonna keep doing them.
Feedback,
But
right? What do you want to hear
awesome.
about? What should we talk about? We're not afraid. It's unscripted. Let's go.
Exactly.
And realize though, if you are listening, like it's unscripted. So
We might say some stupid
You're
things.
hearing my opinion in the moment.
Yeah.
They're not all going to be perfect. You know, it's not a Bible study.
It's not a Bible
So,
study.
and that's different.
is.
That would be the purpose, right? I'm not trying to teach the Bible
I
right
was
now.
just about to say, the purpose of this is different. It's to help people have better conversations and
Right.
inspire people to think more deeply and critically about faith, life, and leadership. I'm getting really good at it
Amen,
now.
brother. Preach it.
No kidding. Well, this has been awesome. I love this conversation. I feel like we could go on for another hour, but
I'm not even here
close
next
on
week,
time.
though. We can't even continue.
I know, right?
Pastor to master from the Center Point Church in Fond du Lac's here.
I'm so excited.
What?
It's gonna be. He's got
That's cool.
some stories.
I'm so
to
proud of
tell.
him. Center Point is doing such an amazing job.
Oh yeah.
If you're listening and you're in Fond du Lac, go visit Center Point. If you're listening and you're in Ripon, go visit Center Point.
Just for fun,
Like,
yeah.
Just check it out. Yeah, support. That's awesome.
Totally. And, yeah, I've seen some of this stuff from afar. I still need to visit. I can't wait to do that sometime soon. But man,
Kind of stinks working on Sunday. Makes it hard to visit other churches, right?
it does. We'll get there. But man, I'm so happy for him. I'm so excited to talk to him. So, is there any last comments from today's talk? Any last things you want to get out there for the creativity and the collaboration and all those things?
Yeah, I'll say don't in all walks of life. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to innovate. All leaders and winners do. Failure. Who cares? Just don't make the same failures over and over and over.
Yeah.
That's all.
And you know what? Be willing to in my mind, my last words are be willing to think that there are a million different ways that you can accomplish a purpose.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to try some new ones.
Be humble.
Yeah.
Right. Your way's not the only way.
No,
Right.
absolutely
Be
not.
humble. It might not have worked, and just realize, okay, that didn't work. Even
Yeah.
in parenting, right?
No,
Even in
all the time in
parenting,
parenting.
you try something and it went horribly. Don't do it that way next time. It didn't work.
Yep.
You tried. A good parent tries. You tried.
Yeah.
And then it didn't work. So I'm going to do it different next time, right?
Yes.
A friend of mine says, fail your way to success.
I love
So I'll
that.
finish with that. Fail your way to success.
All right. Well, that is a fantastic way to end. Thank you all for listening and watching. Feel free to share this with somebody you think would love to hear this message of collaboration and creativity. What a fun one to share with somebody. You can follow us on Instagram at RCC Unscripted, or follow this and subscribe on YouTube or iTunes or Spotify. This has been so much fun. And send us your questions, samprowitz@riponchurch.com. I think that's all the things I can say. Have a great week. We will see you next week. Except you won't. Aaron will. In 2 weeks till you again. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good week.